All right. Hi, guys. So today is going to be a little bit of a different Flights 101 training. It's going to be tea time, story time. I'm going to talk about what happened to me this week with a client that was traveling. It was honestly a horrific situation, but it was a learning experience for me. And I really hope that you guys can take something away from this. Um, Hopefully, it never happens to you guys, but in the event that it does, you know what to do. Okay. So I had clients that were scheduled to leave to Jamaica this past Monday, the 18th. Okay. I had planned and booked this trip several months ago, and this client was giving me a little bit of an anxiety. She was a little like high maintenance, but whatever, dealt with it, pushed through. And I was just crossing my fingers. I just hope and pray that everything goes smooth for this client, considering how the conversations had been going on. I was just like, the last thing I need is for something to happen with her, right? So, um, she everything kind of started the night before. So Sunday night, Sunday in the morning, I always like to, so 24 hours prior to a flight leaving, right? You guys know you can do a check-in, right? 24-hour check-in. So I always like to remind my client, hey, so and so, your check-in is available. Please go take 5 minutes and do that, right? Now, obviously, I've told you guys I do offer to check my clients in, right? But if they do tell me no, it's fine, like I got it because I'm gonna do bags or whatever, um, then they do the check-in. And so it was one of those situations. She wanted to do the check-in, no problem. So I sent her a kind of courtesy reminder 24 hours prior to flight departure. Um, hey, just so you know, your check-in's available. Okay. Well, she was like, I'll do it later. Okay. So, later, meaning like 8 p.m. my time, and her flight was scheduled for the following morning. She's trying to do the check-in. She's having issues. She cannot finalize the check-in. She's able to check in, but her husband's not able to check in. And I said, okay, well, at this point, because I then tried to troubleshoot for her and do the check-in myself, it wasn't allowing me either because I needed to actually scan her husband's passport. Okay. And obviously I didn't physically have it with me. So I said, okay, so and so. At this point, you're gonna have to just finalize the check-in when you get to the airport. Just give yourself some extra time to get there so that way you can make the line because you're gonna have to finalize the check-in there. Well, that was already like an issue. Oh, that line's gonna be ridiculous, blah, blah, blah. I said, you'll be fine, you know, just trying to stay positive, right? So in the morning, um, that always makes me a little nervous having to tell a client that they have to check in that, day of flight at the desk because you never know how the lines are going to be and things like that. So anyway, I was extra like attentive. I'm always attentive when my clients are traveling, but I was just a little bit extra that morning because I knew that she needed to finish the check-in at the desk. And so I wished her a safe flight. I hadn't heard from her for a little bit, so she had told me, thank you so much. Everything's going well, whatever. Okay, awesome. So, literally, I think this is gonna be forever ingrained in my head. Monday, August 18th at 10:52 a.m. She texts me, we have a blank problem. You can kind of fill in the blank there with what word she used. Okay. So I'm like, okay. So I said, what happened? Then I'm like, should I call her right away? But I knew she was still at the airport. Um, and so I didn't want to like jump the gun. So I said, what happened? So she messaged and said that, and of course, the text messages were coming through with spelling errors, and I'm trying to figure out what the heck she's trying to say to me. But ultimately, they were able to check in. They went through security. They had TSA pre-check. So they went through TSA pre-check. She normally holds the passport for her and her husband all the time. However, for whatever reason, the husband was like, "No, I got it. Let me hold my own passport. I want to hold it. Blah, blah, blah. I want to hold it." Like just complaining that he wanted to hold it. So essentially, to shut him up, she's like, "Okay, fine. Take your passport." Okay. So, yes, Halia, mistake number one. So, she gives him his passport. He goes through, he has a bin to put his stuff through through the security belt. And there was a woman that was behind them in line, that there was a little bit of a language barrier. She was having some issues trying to actually understand once she crossed through TSA what her gate was, like where she needed to go. So there was a little bit of a discussion with that, but not that it was like an argument or anybody getting hostile. It was just she just needed some extra assistance, right? So his stuff goes through the belt. The wife, my client, goes first. She gets her stuff. He goes to get his stuff, and they kind of continue on. All of a sudden he says to the wife, my client, "Hey, do you have my passport?" And she's like, "No, I gave it to you because you wanted it," in the security line, right? So he's like, "I don't have it." So they had to return back to TSA. They TSA ended up looking at the cameras, and thankfully they were not so far away from leaving the TSA line that the TSA like agents recognized who they were. They were like, "Oh yeah, you guys were just here." So they were able to look through the security tape, and thankfully it had just happened. The lady behind my clients took my client's passport, my client's husband's passport, along with her stuff, and somehow someone else's passport. So she had two people's passports that were not her own. Okay. So at that point, TSA had because of the situation where the woman was very confused on where she needed to go in terms of her gate. The TSA agent remembers having the conversation with her and saying, "Oh, your gate is F11, let's just say, right?" And my client's was like A20, so in like the complete opposite side of the airport. So the TSA agent tells my client, the wife, "You go to the woman's gate. Go to the woman's gate, and you remember what she looks like. So you find her, essentially track her down to get your husband's passport. And the husband, you stay here with TSA, and we'll just review the security, and we'll call the police, blah blah blah, federal officers." Like it was this whole drama, right? So I end up having to call my client because I'm very confused by these text messages. She explains to me all of what I just said. And I said, "Okay, so positive here, right?" Because I'm positive Polly, like my sister tells me all the time. I said, "Okay, positive is you know who took it, right? You're not in an airport where you have no idea who took it. At least you know who took it, and you can, track her down. You know the gate that she's at. So please keep me updated." At this point, I noticed that their flight was delayed, right? Now, it was a little bit of a weird timing because before I actually got on the phone with my client, I noticed that their flight was delayed, and I was like, "This is weird," but I'll just keep, monitoring the flight. There wasn't anything with weather or anything like that, and that's when she told me the situation. So when she told me the situation, they communicated with the ticket agents, like at the their gate, and they already were going to be delaying their flight. They pushed it back an hour considering the situation. So they were going to hold their flight as long as they could, and at that moment it was an hour. So I was like, "Okay, so that gives you an hour, right?" So essentially she had to take a shuttle from where she was at to this person's gate. They get to the gate, and she's just like sitting there and waiting and waiting. As it got closer to the time that the flight was supposed to leave, so now it was pushed back an hour, it got pushed back again another 30 minutes. Okay, so at this point, it's been delayed an hour and 30 because of the situation with my clients. So I said, "Okay, they're just currently waiting." At that point, they had police and federal officers involved that were with my client. the wife at the gate. The husband was still reviewing like the security tape with the TSA agent. So at some point, the husband ended up meeting up with his wife at the gate that this woman was supposed to be at. And their flight to Jamaica ended up leaving. That was the max that they were going to hold. They ended up holding it for an hour and a half. Okay. I need a drink listening to this. Yeah, literally that's how I felt. It was an all-day affair, guys. I'm giving you guys the cliff notes, okay? So the flight ended up leaving because the max that they were able to hold the flight was an hour and 30 minutes, okay? And at that point, my client was just kind of communicating with me, hey, this is who it is. She actually sent me a photo of who the woman was. At that point, they had a reference number, they had a case opened, and they had already reported his passport lost, okay, or stolen, whatever. And they submitted like a claim already. So I said, perfect. That was already something that I was going to advise them to do. But because they had already done that, thankfully they had the federal officers there. I would imagine that they had also instructed them and guided them to do that. Okay. So, at this point, waiting, waiting, waiting. I hadn't heard anything. I was trying to check in with her periodically. And but again, I didn't want to, continue to rub salt in the wound because at that point, she was asking me, can we look into another flight to get to Jamaica later today? Or do we cancel? Like, what should we do? And I said, okay, first, we need to see what's going to happen with the passport. I cannot make any changes here to your reservation. I'm not going to rebook you on anything until I know for sure that you're going to get his passport back, right? Because if you don't, you're going to be in the same situation, right? So let's first see what happens with the passport and then we will work together, okay? So, at that point, if you guys ever have a situation like that, first find out what's going to happen with the passport and then do the contact supplier, contact transfer company, contact airline, or rebook them on another flight. Okay. So from there, finally, after maybe 2 hours, I want to say almost 2 hours, I finally heard from her. And basically, I had to then get on the phone because again, text messages, she's probably fuming, she's angry, she's upset, and text messages were not coming through very clear for me to understand what she was saying. So I called her. Um, Apparently, they ended up finding out. Sorry, guys, hold on one second. All right, sorry. Um, so I ended up calling her, and so from that phone call, they ended up or what she told me during that phone call was during that time of 2 hours, 1 to 2 hours that had passed since I last spoke to her, they actually ended up they flagged that traveler. So meaning she was not going to be able to board her plane. They had her flagged that she had taken someone else's passport. They also had her flight flagged as well because her flight was to leave to Arkansas. Okay. So they were presently at the gate for the flight leaving from Philly to Arkansas. So they're like, okay, perfect. Like this is it. Essentially kind of like we're gonna get the passport back, right? However, they ended up after doing some more investigation, this woman somehow had a separate flight ticket to Miami. So she had two flight tickets. She had one to Arkansas and one to Miami. So the woman, unfortunately, never showed to the Arkansas gate. She just went on the Miami plane, the flight to Miami. So she just went and left with the passports. And so they're not getting their passport back, right? So to be honest, I have no idea how something like that even happens. I don't know if this woman was confused, if this was a plan, I have no idea. But it makes sense as to why then she was so confused to what her gate was at the TSA line, right? Because then she clearly had two different gates. Okay. Um, And so at that point, they still needed to wait a little bit for I guess direction from the federal officers. At this point, you're not going to get your passport back. They My plan to tell my client was okay, we can get you, let's schedule an appointment for you to for a local passport agency to get an emergency passport for them to issue a passport for your husband like urgently, okay? Because then we can rebook you on another flight and you can get that passport issued immediately. But at that point, because it was already so late in the day, that appointment was not going to be until the next day, Tuesday. So thankfully, when I was on the phone with my client, they had already scheduled an 8 a.m. appointment with the passport agency local to Philadelphia for the following day. Okay, so again, federal officers were there assisting, the ticket agents were also there assisting. So these were all things that they were telling my client to do, which was also very helpful. Okay. So when she told me that, I said, okay, perfect. I essentially confirmed that's exactly what we want to do. If you are still wanting to, we can rebook you for tomorrow. Okay. The issue that we ran into in rebooking them um, was there were no direct flights. For whatever reason, it was the strangest thing. So on Monday, their flight was the only direct flight to Jamaica. All the other flights later that evening were with layovers that would get them there a whole 24 hours later. So they were missing like a whole night, like a whole day. So that was issue getting them rebooked for Monday. We looked, okay, well, obviously Monday wouldn't work because they didn't have the passport, right? Tuesday, same thing. There were no direct flights. They would have had layovers that they would have missed Tuesday completely and arrived Wednesday afternoon. So not even Wednesday morning, Wednesday afternoon. So the next direct flight leaving from Philly would have been Wednesday. So yesterday. Okay. Essentially would have been their same flight itinerary that they had on Monday. Okay. Now, um, she was going back and forth with, well, should I book it? I don't know that I want to do this because our checkout is on Saturday. So is it worth it for us to leave Wednesday to only be there for like 5 minutes and come back, right? Um, so I suggested, are you able to extend your stay longer? So maybe check out Sunday, maybe check out on Monday. That gives you some extra time. Her son starts school on Monday, so she didn't want to even like entertain that idea. She wanted to be there for first day of school. Okay, no worries. So at this point, she's asking me, well, what should I do? Um, what would you do? If this was you, what would you do? So I was just very honest with her, and I said, to be honest, I would cancel. You have the travel protection, um, and which is good, right? But I would cancel. If I was able to extend my trip on the back end and check out on Monday, then I would do that. I would leave Wednesday, check out Monday. That allows me to recoup the days that we lost, right? But if you're not able to do that, then I would cancel. So I said, however, whatever you decide to do, if you decide to leave Wednesday and still check out Saturday, I will support you in whatever you decide. Because right now your flight back home is not affected. It's just your flight there and the transfers and the hotel accommodations. So we will work that out. Okay. So I gave her my opinion, my advice, but I left it open for her to decide because ultimately, right, our clients are going to do what they want to do. Um, so she then decided to cancel. She said, you know what? Let's just cancel. We'll just take the loss. I will get the credit and we'll just fly another time. Okay, sounds good. So at that point, I hang up the phone with her and I immediately get on with the supplier, which in this case, I booked it with FunJet. Sorry, guys, hold on one sec. I need to plug in my laptop. It was with Vax with FunJet. Okay, give me one sec. Okay. It was with FunJet, so I called them immediately. I did call the during travel line. I explained the situation, and just so you guys know, the travel protection through FunJet is only, they will only issue you a travel credit if it's done before departure. Okay. So at this point, departure would have already passed, right? Because I'm calling at like 4, I think I called at like 3 p.m. because I was on the phone with them for almost like 2 hours. It was a whole scandal. Okay. So I'm like, okay, so you're telling me that my client's passport got stolen and they're not eligible for travel credits. That's good to know. And so she said, well, we would have to essentially submit a request, and it's essentially at the mercy of the suppliers, each individual supplier, the hotel, the flights, and the transfer company. So this phone call ended up being almost 2 hours long. Initially, the airlines did not want to issue a flight credit and because departure had already passed. But I said, well, my clients did not get on the plane. They never got on the plane. So I understand departure passed, departure time passed, but they never even made it in destination. And so, anyway, ultimately, thankfully, for the flights, they were issued a travel credit for their flights per person. Okay. Which the way that they did it was they issued the flight credits separate from the hotel and transfers. So these flight credits have to be booked directly through the American Airlines website. Okay, they're not flight credits that I can use on Vax. Okay. Like how you, if you guys are familiar with using flight or with using travel credits on Vax, you can just go on, you can use the confirmation code and the flight credit or the travel credits are applied, right? Well, in this case, the flight credits are issued separately, so it's a per person flight credit that has to be booked directly through American Airlines, okay? So then she has to then put in a request for the hotel and the transfers, which then at that point there was not going to be a guarantee. She did say she was able to get the flight credits approved immediately and I received the confirmation, but the hotel and the transfer credits were going to be up to their discretion. And I'm just like, oh my God, like this is the last thing, of course, with this particular client that I needed to happen. So she did advise that if for whatever reason travel credits were not approved or partial or whatever, because the client had travel protection, we could then initiate a claim through the travel protection plan to cover the remaining loss, like to cover what was not issued as a credit. So thankfully, the hotel and the transfers were issued as a flight as a credit, however, with a penalty. So at the time that my client booked, there was some sort of spring sale going on, so they had received $120 off of their package. Okay. Now, Vax's policy, this was news to me, so hopefully you guys learn this so you can tell your clients. If there is a promotion that's added on to a Vax package, if that is canceled, that promotion amount is non-refundable. Okay. So they had $120 that were off, $120 off. It was like a spring promo or something like that. So the $120 was the penalty. The resort itself had a one night penalty and the travel protection cost. So that amounted to about $700, which is a lot. I knew that the travel protection cost was going to be withheld, right? That's standard, right? So that was going to be 220 or 219, 220 or something like that. So I had already prepared my client. Okay, the total cost of the travel protection plan is going to be withheld, which would be 220, but you should then receive the remaining balance. So that would have been about $3,100 in travel credits. Well, she got less than that, right? Because of the non-refundable promo code and the one night penalty. So at this point, the travel credits for the hotel and the transfers are currently pending and will be issued within 30 business days within their next billing cycle. Um, and the remaining amount, so the penalty for the promotional code and the one night penalty with the resort, I am initiating a claim with the insurance, with the travel insurance plan on my client's behalf to maybe recoup some of that money. Um, I think that's it, guys. At this point, I'm just laughing about it because I can't cry about it, right? But another update, my client messaged me requesting additional information that she can submit to the car parking company because they were obviously they had left their car to be in the you guys know what I'm talking about. The car park situation, right? So they're requesting a refund because they didn't leave their car there, right? They left immediately. So I literally just before this training, I just sent over a formal letter to her, in addition that she can submit to the car company, in addition to screenshots of the emails indicating the travel credits that were submitted and for the flight credits and also the travel credits that are currently pending for the hotel and transfer. So that's the current update. I'm still working on I have to initiate the claim, which I'm going to do that today for the rest that's lost. So key takeaways, guys. Anytime you guys have a situation like this where it's completely out of your control, like you did nothing wrong, but this is just travel's unpredictable, it's important that you guys are, or at least the calm in the storm for your client, right? At least try to be calm and give them that support. Like, hey, I'm here to support you. If you don't have the answer to something right away, just get the resource, right? You don't have to reply back to the client immediately. If I show you my text messages with this client, there's hours, there's 30 minutes, there's 40 minutes in between from me replying back to her. And that's just because I had called Krista. I was like, I don't know what to do. Am I doing the right thing? I ended up reaching out to an amazing travel agent. She's an independent travel agent that I follow a lot of her stuff. And she reached out to me personally and kind of just gave me a little pep talk. So until I heard from Krista, until I heard from that other travel agent, I didn't reply to my client, and that's okay. So just being confident in the information that you can um provide to your client and just being that support and okay, these are your options. Give them all their options out at once. You have option one, two, or three, right? And from there, um, it's their decision. Okay. Also make sure you keep all documentation of who you're talking to on the phone. Thankfully, my client, she passed over to me their, I think like claim number. They even gave me the officer's name that they were dealing with their badge number. So I have all of that to, include in the insurance claim. Um, but yeah, that's that's the best advice that I can give you guys. Just be that calm for your client. Um, Give them that support. Reach out to your resources or to your leaders if you have no idea how to handle a situation. And use the suppliers. The suppliers are great. I mean, obviously, was I annoyed that she was telling me that they weren't going to get the travel credit initially because um of it being post departure? Yes, but the actual representative, um, like herself, like she was amazing. She was very patient. She was very thorough. I had questions myself, like what do we do in this situation? And so she was great. And so our vendors really do take care of us. Use them also as a resource if there's any questions that you guys have about your clients' travels. Um, but that's essentially it. So, questions. Yes, always keep your passport on your person. And I was just like, and I felt terrible for the client because of course they were celebrating their 10th wedding anniversary this week. That was the trip. So she was so excited about it. And she told me on the phone when she called me before she decided she was going to cancel, her husband was trying to make things right and trying to rebook them on another flight. Um, and so I felt kind of like the awkward person because she was yelling at him while I was on the phone with her, saying, "Stop trying to rebook us. We're dealing with Perla. I'm not going to be booking anything with the ticket agent. She's going to do everything for us. Let's not involve so many people." But I could just tell, like, in her voice, she was just so disappointed. And unfortunately, by the time I was able to get off the phone with the supplier, they were still at the airport because they didn't want to give them or release their bags. So they had to wait at least, I think, like another 2 hours to receive their bags. I had texted them, "Hey, I hope you got home safe. Just wanted to let you know I initiated the claim. I initiated the request for the travel credits. I will keep you updated in the next 24 to 48 hours." Because at that point, I had an answer, but I didn't want to tell her right now. I wanted to just let the situation be because I didn't want to get her more worked up that there was a possibility she wasn't going to get the travel credits. So I would rather wait until I knew for sure what was going to be approved, what was not going to be approved, and then let her know. So at that point, she was like, "We're not even home yet. They're not releasing our bags to us." It was a whole drama. And um, so yeah, so they finally got their bags and they probably headed back home like around 6 or 7 p.m. Um, after being in the airport for almost 12 hours. Um, so yeah, what questions do you guys have, if anything? I guess I'll let you, if you want to put it in the chat box. Um, oh wait, hold on. I think we can let you guys, there you go. You guys should be able to unmute if you guys have questions.
Perla, I'm driving, so I cannot text.
That's
But
okay.
I was curious, did they ever caught that woman that took the passport by accident or by plan?
To my knowledge, no. She went on her flight to Miami.
Do
They
you
were
But I
know?
don't understand. I don't understand. How did they not track her butt when she got off the plane in Miami? Like, that's what I don't understand. They
Hmm.
just were like, oh, she took it.
I'm sure that they probably did, but I didn't like investigate myself that far.
Pearl, I'm gonna need you to get a seat, like the update on the Dateline over here. Like, we got like a whole Dateline episode we're trying to create here.
Okay,
Um,
well, to be fair, I do have the police report number and I do have their headquarters number, so I can give them a call.
like we need like did were guns drawn? Because the thing it, like she took multiple passports.
Yes. And that's where I was just like, this is just getting worse and worse. Like, because when she initially told me that the passport was taken, I was like, okay, well, from how you're explaining it, it seems like this woman is just like very frantic, nervous, doesn't really know what to go. So just like in a panic, she just grabbed everything. But then it just got worse. Like, no, she took someone else's passport too and had a whole nother ticket to somewhere different. So it was just like it made me think that this was maybe staged. Was this planned?
Well,
And
Yeah.
yeah, because she asked this flight, like, what gate for this flight, which is the flight she didn't get on. So that's the trail that everybody goes to. And she's like, "Doo, doo, 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 here comes to Miami," which if anybody knows
Yeah, it
anything
sounds
about
like she
Miami,
was.
Yeah, acting confused just to create a distraction, you
Right,
know?
right.
Yeah.
Uh,
Wow.
Carla, what I think about this is because I have personally experienced this, not with the passport thing, but another type of legalization, to be here in the United States. Um, but one thing that we experienced years ago, my aunt, she had a Filipino passport, but she only had the green card in Canada. And, and do you know, in the immigration people stole her Canadian residence green card type of thing. So
Mm.
when she landed in Montreal, she cannot get out because she does not have the green card.
Oh,
And
wow.
we know that it was stolen because
Mm-hmm.
these people, what they do, they steal these things and they recreate and sell it with a lot of money. And a lot of
Right.
people will pay for that. And I'm gonna tell you guys what happened to me, but do not tell my parents because I have not told them yet. So they also stole my naturalization
Mm.
in the embassy of the Philippines just last February. That's why I know people, they steal these things, these legal things. Um, my parents were in the Philippines and they said, "Hey, you need to do a," because I'm an American. I have an American passport. They
Mm-hmm.
said you need dual citizenship because we have two houses in the Philippines. If something happened to us, at least you can uh, do things. I have a Filipino passport. Do you know I got my Filipino citizenship when I got home? I don't have my original naturalization. I am still an American citizen. It's
Mm-hmm.
just to get back the naturalization, the paper, it's $1,500. I can get that because naturally, so the immigration has it. They have it. But for me to get that tangible naturalization, I have to pay 1,500. They stole it in the Philippine embassy, my own
Right.
people.
Right. Right. Wow.
So I
Yeah,
think
it's
this one, it was this lady was being dramatic, and she already had the plan to steal U.S. passport.
yeah, it definitely was unfortunate. I mean, she was traveling alone from what it looked like in the photo that was sent to me. It looked like she was older. The photo was a little blurry. But it looked like she was an older woman, so it was crazy. Crazy, crazy. Um,
I would not be surprised if they were actually waiting for her to get off the plane in Miami. I
yeah,
would not be
probably.
surprised. That's a federal, that's
Mhm.
a big no, no.
Right.
So
Yeah.
this kind of reminds me of like something that happened on my honeymoon. So I got married in April and we went to Scotland for a trip. And my husband, being a man, dropped his passport, right? Because that's what he does when he gets to Starbucks. He put this in his pocket, but his passport fell out and someone picked it up. Luckily, they didn't use it. They took it straight to the security. Because of that, we missed our flight, so we had to wait for another flight later at night and had to spend the night at the airport.
Oh my goodness. I mean, at least they turned it in, right? And they
Yeah,
didn't
that was
try to
like my
steal it.
biggest concern when he said,
Right.
I don't have my passport. I'm like, why don't you have your passports?
Well, my thing is too is, and I
He
know
has
it's,
lost passport.
yeah, it's like something that I never thought that I needed to tell clients now, but literally just this morning I had clients leave and I spoke on the phone with them last night about their transfers. And I said, okay, I'm going to tell you something. And I know that you guys are probably really good with your passports, but as soon as you get your passport back from the TSA agent, put it in your bag. Put it back in your bag, put it in its little pouch, however it is that you're holding it and carrying it into the airport, put it back in your bag on your possessions. And they were like, oh, yeah, we always do that. Is there something wrong? Like, why would we put it through the belt? Like, why would we leave it there? And I said, well, I gave him the story a little bit. And so it's just now that that happened to me, or to one of my clients, I guess I should say, and I had to experience it. Now it's like, okay, it's a very common sense type of thing that you think a lot of people might know, but now it's going to make me even more aware to include it in travel documents to clients, to send it as a reminder, make sure you have all documentation on hand, you're not leaving it anywhere. If you're the holder of all the documents, don't change your mind all of a sudden day of travel to give it to somebody else. So, yeah. Amadis, I definitely
Would it
always
have
give
helped?
people
Oh,
the benefit of the doubt. So you're right, Halia. Yeah. I'm sorry, Betsy. Go ahead.
that's okay. Would it have helped at all to have a picture of their passport? Because we're always like, oh, we're going to have a picture of our passport and all that stuff, but that probably wouldn't have helped, right?
I mean, it would have been helpful in getting the replacement. But
Yeah.
that they would have, like, for example, the federal officers actually did offer, like, hey, you guys can, like, essentially they were like, you guys can go to on your flight, which I don't know why they offered to do that, but they were like, you guys can go on your flight and you have the case number, whatever, we'll contact you, etc. But at that point, then they would not be on American soil. They would now be in Jamaica having to go through customs, which they would still have to show a passport. So I don't know why they would even
Uh,
offer that to them as like, oh yeah, you
yeah.
can still go on your flight. Um,
Right.
but yes, having a photocopy, like a picture of your passport is helpful. It does expedite if you do need to get a replacement. And one thing
Mm,
I will say too is if that ever happens to your client where they need to get a replacement because maybe they noticed last minute that it was expired or something, or expiring
mm,
in that 6 month time. A lot of those countries have that. Um,
yeah.
if they have a photocopy of that, that's fine. But they need to have a travel date within 14 days. So they cannot issue you an expedited passport like that in person if you don't already have a travel date within 2 weeks. So just something to keep in mind, if you ever have to explain that to your clients. I'm sticking mine in my bra after the story. Yeah, literally, Tony Ann. Yes, you're welcome, Marcella. Okay. All right, so that was it, guys. That was the story time. That was the tea time. If you guys have questions about anything related to the story or related to handling an emergency like this, put it in the chat box, or about anything in flights in general, let me know. But we kind of got finished a little bit earlier today. But thanks for coming on. I hope you guys learned something. Yeah, exactly. Even for your own personal travel, definitely be more aware of those things. You're welcome, guys. All right, so I will see you next week. Same time, same Zoom. Hopefully nothing happens. I hope I don't come with another story time next Thursday. So
Yeah, I hope you don't have another story.
I hope not. I hope not. We'll actually go through some stuff
A
next
good
week. So
story.
yes. Yeah. All right, guys, have a great rest of your day. If I'm able to get an update, I definitely will keep you guys updated, but have a great rest of your day. Bye, guys.
Bye.